Counter-Strike Global Offensive has been one of the most popular games in the world for some time now. Through its history, however, the game has been notorious for several overpowered weapons. Today we will determine the most OP weapon each year since CSGO's release. As a clarification, the criteria for this list will be how much better a weapon is than its desired effect, not how good the weapon is. Upon CSGO's initial release, weapon balancing was not horrible. The AWP, however, was the most overpowered weapon due to its unnaturally high movement speed. Instead of the tactical and defensive manner which the AWP must be used in today, this allowed the weapon to be used in an offensive manner, similar to a sniper in Call of Duty. The AWP's high movement speed lands it as the most OP weapon of 2012. For only 1 week in 2013, the Deagle was incredibly overpowered. Its extremely high damage and rapid accuracy recovery rate allowed for fast two-shot bursts that annihilated opponents.
Currently, one bullet to someone with armor at even a reasonable range does 80 plus damage, which is extremely overpowered.
It was so strong that it was consistently capable of defeating rifles, and was possibly even a better choice due to its price. The quick nerf was needed, as the Deagle was the most OP weapon of 2013. 2014 was a poor year in weapon balancing for Valve. Several guns were in their most overpowered state ever at some point, including the Tech 9, AUG, and UMP. The most OP weapon, though, was the CZ75. Nicknamed the Pocket AK, this little pistol packed an extreme punch for a mere $300. I mean, just look at Shroud mowing down all of iBuyPower with it.
Shroud has let them all pass. 1, 2, oh!
It took several updates over the course of years to get the CZ balanced, and it was the most OP gun of 2014. One of the most absurd weapons in Counter-Strike history was the release version of the R8 revolver. For a few days only, this revolver was a better version of an AWP. It was a one-shot kill even against armored opponents, had faster movement speed than an AWP, and only cost $850. For the few days that the R8 was in the game, it was hilariously overpowered, and definitely the most OP gun of 2015. 2016 was a fairly balanced year in CSGO, so it was hard to choose one weapon. If any weapons were unbalanced, it was the pistols. After 2016, both the Tech 9 and P250 were nerfed. The slightly more OP of the weapons was the P250, which provided a surprisingly high armor penetration for its cheap price of $300. This allowed it to be the cheapest option to one-tap armored opponents, and as a basic pistol, it should not have had such strength. That makes it the most overpowered weapon of 2016. The UMP was in an overpowered state for a long time, which culminated in 2017 when players realized it was capable of rivaling rifles. At $1,200, with high armor penetration and low damage drop-off, the UMP was essentially as good as a FAMAS, but cheaper. It was very common for teams on bad economy to buy UMPs and steal around from their rifle-bearing opponents. It may not have been comically OP, but the UMP was the most overpowered weapon of 2017. In 2018, the CSGO community realized something. The SG553 was overpowered and nobody was using it. After a $250 price cut, the SG quickly caught on in the pro community, as it had the same fire rate as an AK but better armor penetration. Add in the benefit of the scope, and the SG dominated for roughly a year in CSGO, making it the most overpowered weapon of 2018. 2018 and 2019 could be labeled the scoped gun era of Counter-Strike, as the AUG dominated the latter year. It's hard to call a base rifle that isn't terribly unbalanced OP, but the AUG's role has historically been an extra step up from the M4s if CTs had extra money. During 2019, the AUG was virtually the only rifle worth buying on the CT side, as it sported a higher rate of fire and better unscoped accuracy than its current version. With widespread usage and a mid-year nerf, the AUG was the most overpowered weapon of 2019. By 2020, CSGO's gunplay had become extremely balanced. For this reason, it was hard to pick one weapon in particular that was overpowered. As a result, the M4A4 was the most overpowered weapon of 2020. It was OP in the sense that the weapon was too strong for its counterpart, the M4A1S, to merit any usage. The M4A4 had been favored over the M4A1S for several years, but due to the high level of balancing in 2020, the M4A4 was the most overpowered weapon of the year. Knowing the M4A4 was one of the last overpowered weapons remaining in the game, Valve had been working on updates to equal the gap between the M4s. In doing this, they went too far, and by the end of 2021, players realized that the buffed M4A1S, sporting a sub $3,000 price and more ammo, was the superior CT rifle. Even today, after a nerf, the M4A1S is still the heavily favored version of the M4. As was true with 2020, the M4A1S was not game-breakingly overpowered, but it did dominate CT rifle choice, which makes it the most OP gun of 2021. CSGO today is probably in its most balanced state. No one weapon is necessarily overpowered at this point, but there are two weapons that are heavily favored in their classes. These are the MAC-10 and MP9. Due to their cheap prices and high mobility, they are the SMGs that make the most sense to buy. If you have enough money to buy a P90 or MP7, you would probably buy a rifle instead, so these SMGs are the most overpowered weapons of 2022. If I had to pick one, I'd pick the MAC-10 due to its cheaper price. Thanks for watching, everybody. Let me know what you think is the most overpowered weapon of 2022.